slowly it rises.
Hey, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict, back with another video. We're going to look at the 66 Lincoln Continental Convertible and see, was it worth $37,450, which, of course, is what you see here on the screen. Now, I do want to recap and just briefly mention I was kind of out of pocket for about a week. I left out of town, so I didn't get a chance to really hit on some of these recent sales. Of course, I went over this 64 sedan, so just an update. It went for $37,250, which I thought was a good deal considering how much the owner had put into the car. The 65 went for $45,750, so I didn't review that one. More to come on it. We're going to look at this 66 that went for $37,450, and then of course this 63 convertible, as you'd imagine, it's going for more money. It went for more money. Now, I don't think Nathan Wilson owned it, but I do believe Philip maybe is the gentleman's name. He has a connection, maybe friends with Nathan Wilson or something like that. Of course, the land out in the greater Orlando area, this car, I think Nathan had posted it. So, again, didn't get a chance to cover that one. It went for $63,000. Now, what I want to do on this car is a little bit unique type situation that you're going to see towards the end. So stick with me if you can, and I'll give you my insight if I would ever recommend this car to someone else. What we can see here is 66 convertible, previously registered in Virginia. Of course, it has the 462, and you're going to see that it has all kind of some of the standard information here, 15-inch wheels. The car was repainted from blue to white under previous ownership. So again, I love how Bring a Trailer will kind of give you a little bit of that insight, especially for folks like me or someone like yourself that's buying a car and you're kind of breaking down that DSO. The hydraulic convertible top motor relays, wiring, and flap gear were replaced. The flap lift assembly and limit switch were refurbished in November 2022. So that's a good indication that a lot of the work's been done on the top, some of those usual things that have to be done. We have Diamondback tires, which I totally understand they're not going to be for everyone. Folks have pointed out in the early 60s, Lincoln did have a factory kind of wider white wall tire, but certainly by the year either 63, 64, they had shrunk down to that little kind of white line, if you will, a lot smaller. The master cylinder was replaced, so they kind of go into that detail. And you can see a lot of the dates were kind of in the last 2 to 3 years, which is a good indication of some service work that's been done. The car does not have a jack or spare tire. I like how they're being very upfront as they can with some of the key little items with these cars. They kind of go into some additional detail here about the switches and whatnot. They talk about 3,000 miles have been under the current ownership. True mileage is unknown. The hood hinges forward to reveal the 462, which we know it is a forward hinging hood. And they talk about oil and power steering fluid leaks are present. Power is sent to the rear wheels. Of course, they talk about the transmission. And they talk about how the trans was overhauled by Jasper Engines and Trans under prior ownership. So if the transmission was rebuilt, that's definitely a big plus. These are a little bit more, the C6 is a little bit more serviceable. I think depending on where you live in the country, there's more people that can rebuild those versus the earlier year Lincoln transmission. So it has some good things going for it, which we kind of just went over there. Now, I'm not going to go really a lot through these videos, but, they do show some videos, which I think is a positive thing. As you've heard me talk about, the more evidence, the better. They do get into videos here driving at highway speed, showing the speedometers, so kind of reinforcing how fast they're going. The Lincoln interior steering wheel linkage, they show that. That's a thing I talk about a lot in the past. The top working. The Lincoln under hood warm up, the top going up, top going down, rear windows and things like that. So a lot of good stuff. They also show underneath the doors. So possibly this person has watched some of my videos to kind of reinforce the importance of some of these things. And if not, kudos to them for, look at how many videos there are. A lot of good stuff. Now, when we look at this car, to me, I look at that front three-quarter shot and I see the bright work looks pretty good from what we can see. Obviously, wide white wall tire, newer tires. It sounds like, I believe they mentioned in the last 3 years they had been replaced. You've got that kind of brown, tan, if you will, canvas top. We can see it has a Wisconsin plate. And when you kind of look in here in the corner of the door, it's kind of hard to tell if there's something kind of maybe going on there. It's not a perfect car exterior-wise, but it certainly, from these angles, it doesn't look bad, right? I mean, overall, I think it looks pretty good. I do believe, and it's hard to see here, I do believe there is there's a piece that that goes here, and they're often missing, and it kind of hides that gap, if I remember correctly. I don't really talk about that much, but it does look like it is there. I think it was that angle of the photo. I want to see how good the paint job is, being that it was repainted, but from what I can see in these photos, it doesn't look too bad. Now, I wanted you to stick with me because I really want to talk about something from under the car itself. But if you look at some of these photos, they're going to show some of these items. I wouldn't be alarmed with some of this. This is standard with some of the pot metal that was used on the cars in different places. Of course, this stainless can be polished. That doesn't look bad at all. That's kind of driver quality. But you can see the kind of the level of detail, at least in the photos that they're going through. Now, this is a good photo on the driver's side. This would be the rear bumper. This is not the taillight. These are kind of reflectors in here. But this is that metal here between the reflector, and this is where the deck lid is at. And you can see kind of them showing the imperfections in the paint. Same thing here, just above the bumper. The dog leg, I believe, on the passenger side, and some of the bubbling. This is kind of stuff that you'll see on a lot of these Lincolns for whatever reason. A little bit of bubbling and whatnot there. Unfortunately, we get some toes in this one. But the material that's made out of or that's used for the door handles, that kind of spider effect and things like that, I mean, you're often going to see that unless things have been re-chromed or redone. We could see the upgraded upper back panel switch, which is a key thing. John Cashman used to sell those. There are guys out there like Jim Brewer that you can get that stuff from. Here they're going into just some detail about the actual, some of the bubbling and whatnot, trying to be as upfront as possible. When I see the interior, I say this is kind of the money shot. If you're looking at buying one of these cars, you're often, going to ask your significant other, or you're going to make a decision and you're going to see something like this and go, wow, I could put my kids in it, put the grandkids, the wife, the significant other, and go cruise, get some ice cream, do the local cruise. And a shot like this is usually what's going to kind of bring you in, so to speak, in terms of saying, hey, let's pull the trigger, so to speak, and get this car or get a Lincoln. Here we're seeing under the doors. This part here doesn't look too bad. And here you can see a little bit of crustiness. Again, I wouldn't say maybe any more abnormal there than we've seen on other Lincolns. We can see the upgraded radio, and you can see this dash pad has been redone. This may be fine for you. I think there's some people, if it was me, I would want to redo it. That's just my professional opinion. But you can also see here in 66, it's a little bit harder to see with this material on here, but there is kind of that gap. And again, it's kind of tough to tell with this one, but there is a little gap that I kind of like on 66 versus 67. So if you're ever kind of comparing those two, got some up close photos here, again, kind of just showing standard stuff, and just bouncing around here just to kind of show you and keep these videos to a decent time length. This is a good photo. Again, I've talked about in the past the gas pedal, and my friend Tony Bolin has mentioned this as well, and others. You can look at the gas pedal and it kind of gives you a little bit of insight to how much a car's been driven. Like, this one doesn't look too bad, to be honest. You can also look at the brake pedal and you can kind of see the wear on it. Typically someone's, heel is going to be down here, and we often rest our side of our foot right there. But, at least looking at those two, they don't look too worn out. I mean, sure, they could have been changed and all that, but I highly doubt that in a car like this. Again, you can see the upper back panel switch. You can see some of the chips and things like that. And certainly this car, I would say so far what we're seeing is kind of a driver quality, right? We can see it has an upgraded compressor. So I did a video recently talking about how to get your air conditioning working in these 60s Lincolns. And there's a few things I'll point out. So number one, most people want to have AC, although I think he says in the comments it does not blow cold. Some of these fittings are kind of clocked a little bit weird, not a deal breaker. You could always redo these hoses if you needed to. A little bit different setup, but certainly if you could get the AC working, that's a plus. Number two, this is not the right hardware, and this doesn't appear. It might, okay, this top piece might be correct. And there's a couple subtle differences in these 60s Lincolns for these top pieces for the air cleaner. Although I can tell you the air cleaner is not either seated right or it is not the correct air cleaner. This should not be up that way, okay? We can also see that it has the single master cylinder. And you will sometimes see what it looks like is these relays here. Oftentimes people will upgrade from those old original relays. And in 66, some of these are housed basically in the engine bay right here. So that's what you're kind of seeing. That's why those kind of stick out a little bit. This little guy here often is broken off the expansion tank, so it's cool to see that. They're not always broken, but often they are. In addition, I don't know why someone would use... it's hard to tell. I don't believe this is fuel line. It could be rated for fuel, but certainly these are typically black lines. I know that's being pretty picky, but if it was me, these would be easy to change. You've got the fuel coming in, and then you have it going out to the carb. But those are little things that I wanted to kind of point out. Now, the big thing that I would say on this car is what we're going to talk about right now, and I want to get your opinion. Certainly, I'm not trying to sell or throw the seller under the bus, but that's another good reason I think on this one that the sale has been done and it's over with. Now, if you looked at the comments were 98, 99% positive. I don't know that I saw any negative comments. Everyone was saying things like, oh, wow, someone got a great car. It's a steal. This is awesome. Paint it black. Take it to Barrett Jackson. All different sorts of comments. My thing that stuck out to me is this. Without a trained eye, or if you've never been under one of these cars, you may not see this right away. But basically, there's some boxing in that's been done underneath this car. And certainly, it probably drives straight down the road. We saw the videos. Someone probably enjoyed this car. No problem. If that's your thing, more power to you. However, I will say this. Oftentimes, people are looking for cars that are kind of untouched, more original and things like that, and they are getting harder to find. But if you look at this car and you look at these two, I almost want to say like frame rail tubing. My friends are into building custom chassis and things like that. Certainly, I don't think this is, that exact thing, but someone has taken some metal, and what they've essentially done is they've ran these channels from the back. You see the leaf spring perch here, all the way towards the front of the car, okay? So why would they do that? Well, if we start to look in here, it's hard to tell. You can kind of see a little bit of craziness going on here with the welds and things like that. And you can see that over here as well. We can see here in the floor. My assumption based upon, there's just a brief description, and we'll look back at that there was some, quote, rust repair that was done on this car. So I have seen this happen before. I actually know someone out in California that had a guy had a car, and he really wanted to save the car. I think he was a truck driver, and the guy had been hosed over for a lot of money, and he really wanted to finish the car. And they did something similar. They basically ran almost like a frame rail down it to stiffen the car up and to kind of bring it back into square, if you will. The challenge I have with this is when you look at other parts of the car, you look at underneath where the trunk is at and things like that. You go, it doesn't look too bad. You've got the undercoating that's scraped off in some areas. This is a perfect car for us to discuss this topic because the car looks nice from the outside. It also looks good from underneath where the trunk is at. But if you look here at some of what's been done, where the cutouts have been done and this stuff has been welded in, kind of patch panels, I'll call it. My thing is, if you don't care about what's underneath the car, $37,500 might have been great for you to buy this one. If you're a type of person that wanted something more original, something that really hasn't been messed with and things like that, I would sway you away from buying a car like this. Simply because, again, you look at this frame rail-ish type run of the boxed-in metal, and you see some of these cuts and things like that. You have to think about it, from a resale value, like down the road. Is someone going to want to buy this? How safe is it? I don't think that the safe piece of it so much is the biggest challenge. More than likely this car is fine to drive down the road, but again, you just kind of get back into, wow, it looks good overall, but underneath it's just not what I was expecting when I looked at this car. And I say that, with all respect to the person that had it. This person put some money into the car, they drove it, they enjoyed it, it appears. But this proves that there's always going to be, typically there's going to be a buyer and there's going to be a seller out there, right? You're going to have someone that has something and you're going to have someone that wants to get into that. And that's what they did here. They were able to sell it for $37,500, we'll call it. You could see here where this appears, almost like boxed in tubing, but you can kind of see the way they did it. They kind of laid this over some of those factory. They're not subframe panels, or it's not a subframe, so to speak, because it is a unibody. But some of those factory runs, if you will, they were able to kind of plate this up and stiffen it. You can see here where all this has been cut and kind of patched in. Now, there are some parts underneath the car, like I said, underneath the trunk floor pan area, that doesn't look too bad. And, you look at some of the other things and go, wow, if it was rotted out, wouldn't more stuff be rotted out? That's the crazy thing about some of the cars, and depending on where they spent their existence. Sometimes you'll have a car that looks great from the outside and underneath it, not so much. I want to know, again, what you guys think. Would you buy this car? Do you think the car is worth $37,500? What other thoughts do you have? Now, I will tell you this in closing. There was a guy that we knew of locally here. I've never met him. He bought a 65 convertible flat black car, and he bought it on an auction site. We were told that he paid $35,000 to $40,000 for it. When he took it to the person we know, Blair, to fix the top, because, by the way, he paid $35,000 or $40,000, the top and the windows weren't working. So he said, we need to get the top working, the windows working, so I could put the top down and cruise in Florida. When Blair put it up on the lift, he couldn't believe that it literally had holes in the floor where you could put your fist through. And it had looked, if I remember correctly, it had looked like someone took like tinfoil and fiberglass and tried to kind of make it a lipstick job. You would think that the person would freak out and go, wow, I just spent $35,000 or $40,000 in that example, not this car. The person told Blair, proceed ahead. I don't care. I'm going to put the top down. I'm going to cruise this car. I could care less what's underneath it. There are people out there that just don't care, and that's fine. That's their prerogative, and it's their money, so it's not the end of the world. But for someone like yourself that might be looking to buy one of these cars, the reason why I go over this channel is to show you those different, or, go over these cars on this channel, is to show you the different aspects of what's out there. You could buy this car and not even have known that, and then taking it to your local mechanic and he or she goes, wow, did you know this car looked like this? Well, yeah, I saw the photos, but I didn't think anything of it. It says the seller reports the presence of rust repair performed in the floors and wheel wells. And it talks about rust on the bottom of the door. So they kind of showed some of that. Now, I will show you this before we close this video down. Again, let me know what you guys think. Paint up black, send it to Barrett. Well bought, great investment. You can rent this car for weddings. Congratulations, wonderful vehicle. just, I mean, literally everything I was seeing, and I scanned through every one of these, and, you know, it won't sell at that price. Seller would be crazy not to have it at 60 or 70,000. I thought the comments were going to be a 180. I thought that people, you know, of course I want to make sure that car gets what it's worth, sure, over 75,000. I thought everybody was going to nail it, going, oh my God, the rust is kind of, you know, rough under it, you know, a lot of patch panels, things like that. And from what I saw, I didn't see any comments about that. So it's always interesting to me to see the aspect that other people take. Certainly, I wouldn't say this is the worst one I've ever seen. I've seen them far worse. You guys have as well if you've been following the channel. But I would say this. I would strongly steer someone to a different car depending on what their thought process is. If they go, hey, Jason, I want a nice car that hasn't been touched. I don't have to put a lot of money in. You know, it's nice on the up, you know, on the underside, undercarriage, you know, solid motor, original, things like that. This wouldn't be the car for them. If somebody goes, hey, I put together my pennies and I've saved 37,000, I got 50 or, you know, 40,000, I got a few thousand for transport. I want a car that has new tires. I want a car that drives down the road. I want a car that has AC, even if it's not working. This car might fit the mold for that person. The last thing I'll say is this, you know, there are some good things about it. There's some things that I kind of find like, I'm surprised that it really hit 37.5, but congratulations to the seller. I think that's a good thing. And I'm definitely want to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think. LincolnAddict.com to find ways to listen to Lincoln Addict podcast. And don't forget to check out, check me out here by subscribing, because I'll continue to upload these videos. And oh, by the way, I'm working on new content outside of these videos. So appreciate all the support. ODB, we out of here. Take care.